like to introduce Mr. Bo Sachs, President and Publisher of Precision Media Group.
Thank you. It's great to be back in Mississippi. The professional people in the room know Samir and I have a long-standing relationship, but I put this up for the students. You guys should know that Samir and I have been debating the future of this industry. I think our first debate was 2005. I think this is the second or third time we debated. We're so famous in the industry that we have our own cartoon strip. I don't know if there are any other two professionals in this room can say that. But moving on, now for something completely different. We've been discussing the magic of print for 2 days now, and it seems to me that we need to understand the new climate we find ourselves in. You know, many of us in this room have had a tremendous amount of nostalgia for the printing industry about how things were in our business. That's a good thing, but nostalgia shouldn't hold us back from new successes and new forms of creativity. Today I will be discussing the revenue of media today, and on a focus, I'll be discussing the truth about digital lies. But to get there, we need to consider how hard it is to move past traditional thinking, because we are wired to be safe, and that can cripple us from creativity. The truth is that we all need to take risks. Many times to succeed, you have to challenge your assumptions. Let's talk about challenging our assumptions. Let's start here. How media is being consumed in today's environment. The students in this room have grown up in the digital era. Most of you have never experienced a lack of instant access to any and all information. The hard fact is that the majority of the reading public spends more time with digital devices than with printed products. I will try to make a case that that is not necessarily a bad thing, because as it turns out, things that are valuable are scarce. It does seem to me that the best way to look at the change is to consider that print is going from being a commodity product to a luxury product. And that should be considered a good thing. And as we have heard for days, many print products are thriving, and especially regional and enthusiast titles, such as the Hoffman Group. They and many others are growing market share and bucking the industry trends. If you have a great idea and want to publish it in print, it is possible that you may be wildly successful. So print is not dead or dying, but the inescapable truth is that many print magazines and newspapers are under stress and finding it harder to have sustained revenue growth as offline media. If you as a student or the company you end up with working stays with print as the main product, you too can be part of the billions of revenue that will be left in the field. But that will, of course, take true local insights into who your readers are and exactly what information they want from you that they can't get anywhere else. That is one of the keys. What do you have that can't be gotten someplace else? Whatever that is, that's your franchise. Students, remember this. The trick will be to stay smart, agile, and very demanding of your coworkers and your staff, as only the very best can and will survive. Importantly, it doesn't matter what the trends of the overall industry are to your individual companies, so long as you can continuously produce unsurpassed editorial excellence in your particular niche. The first thing we need to understand in today's media business environment is that attention is monetizable. But perhaps even more important is that not all attention gets meaningful ROI, return on investment, and I'll get back to that later. Everyone in this room has a smart device, perhaps even two, that knows more than we do. That gives us access to a world of information and people. An important part of how media is being consumed in today's environment is to know exactly what we do with our time with media. And that's an important equation. what we do with our time with any media. In this famous report from Mary Meeker of Annual Trends, as you will see, this is from 2010. A few key data points. Look at print, 2010. It received 8% of all time. Any all time spent with media was spent with print. And we had 27% of the ad spend. Here's the latest chart. And in the past 5 years, the amount of time spent using mobile devices for digital media consumption has exploded. From less than an hour a day in 2010 to almost 5 hours a day in 2015. Here's where, excuse me, here's where the majority of advertising spend is going. Facebook, Google, and others. Why there, you might ask? And that's a good question, too. As you might remember, the topic of this talk is the truth about digital lives, and we are nearing the meat of the issue. Think of what is happening this way. By 2021, nearly 90% of all internet traffic will be from smartphones. That is both an amazing statistic and an important one to keep in mind. Keeping in mind that attention is monetizable, I will point out that in a typical day in the life of mobile users, our time seems to be spent with an average of only 3 apps. In the US, they are Facebook, Chrome, and YouTube. To that point, I suggest that not all attention is meaningful attention. And again, I'll get back to it in a few minutes. More than 2/5 of all digital ad spending on the US will go to Google this year, with Facebook in second place. No other digital publisher will enjoy even 4% of the revenues. So what's going on? What we know now is that the technological growth that took multiple generations to achieve now happens in months. Technology is evolving at such an accelerated rate that we really have no chance of keeping up with it at all. Not legally, not legislatively, not socially, not strategically, in fact, hardly at all on any meaningful level. We are not just experiencing a digital revolution, it's also a social revolution. Earlier this year, The Economist unveiled results of a new set of research into media consumption and habits of young people. The findings confirmed what had long been suspected throughout the global media industry. The critical point they found was that people no longer draw a distinction between new media and legacy media brands. The Economist's Nick Blunden said, this generation, and in particular a subset of them, which is The Economist called the generators, is an extremely influential group within millennials as a whole. About 1 in 3 millennials falls into this category of generators. And what The Economist found out about is that they're some of the most sophisticated media consumers in the world has ever seen. And actually, they're as willing and active to use traditional media as they are new media. They don't see the difference. When it comes to content, they are interested in all kinds of content and all different types of topics. They consume more media than any other generation that's gone before us. That's good news. And the way they consume it is more varied. So with that in mind, what have we already reimagined in this information revolution? Well, the payphone is gone. We communicate differently. Remember how we used to look things up? Remember carrying a camera, working with negatives and film? Remember pens and pencils? How about storing files and folders? This is all completely different. Do you remember the cash register of old? Who now goes to a bank, not even for lending? Human resources then and human resources now? We've even reimagined thermostats. When was the last time you used the Yellow Pages to look up a phone number? Amazing as may seem, we've also changed what a signature is. And of course, we have reinvented how we get the news. So what isn't different? Reading. Did you know that for some types of magazines, as in regional titles, demand for print is actually higher than it was 10 and 20 years ago? According to a third-party study by the MPA, a high of 90% of Americans are still reading print magazines. When directly asked what their preferred format for reading is, respondents said they routinely preferred paper. We heard that on the opening night. This makes me ask, what about the time spent with media charts? I think the answer lies in the niche experience of many quality titles. As an example, a few months ago, I spoke to the City Regional Magazine Association in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it comes down to what category your title is in for your continued and ongoing success in print. Which leads me to the next question. What the heck is a magazine? Somebody or some bodies delivers to us an organized collection of opinions, perspectives, facts, and constructs of another mind, or perhaps a collection of minds. This way, we are offered a chance at premeditated discovery, the chance of intentionally constructed serendipity. When picking up a magazine, newspaper, or book, it is a determination and a declaration of premeditated reading. Now let's talk about reading and advertising. Having lived through the amazing transformations and reimagining across the entire media industry, we have in the span of a few years accepted that content and attention span has emerged as a central currency, linking brands and the public. As a result, sweeping changes in media, advertising, and technology are in motion. Marketers and publishers are working closer together than ever before, and well, they should. So what I'm getting to is, does science matter when it comes to advertising in media? Let's take a look. Dan told us Wednesday the haptic experience between print and digital is mainly a different feel, a different sensation, and perhaps above all else, a different expectation. Print doesn't offer distractions other than the words and thinking on the page, while a digital experience definitely does. Just knowing that you can click and go elsewhere is indeed very seductive. Even if you can stay focused, you know in the back of your mind that you can travel beyond your current environment when reading digitally. With print, the expectation is built right into the product as linear and fixed, with no possibility of surfing beyond the next page. This is grounding, too. It's in the background of your brain, this lack of surfability. And those particular expectations make reading a different experience. Not everybody finishes every article regardless of the substrate. To get readers to finish anything containing words requires good writing, good editing, and a compelling subject. It is addictive content, properly constructed and distributed, that brings success to any magazine, any book, any newspaper, in print, or on the web. It's that simple and that hard. Here's what we know. Paper stimulates a stronger emotional response. Memory and comprehension is better when reading on paper. Paper is more action-oriented than digital because its physical format stimulates mental processes that guide consumer behavior. A little bit of perception and reality. As we heard from the MPA on opening night, despite important changes in media consumption in recent years, consumers continue to have the most trust in advertising in magazines and newspapers. When asked how much trust they attach to advertising in the various forms of media, consumers gave magazines and newspapers a high score of 63%, TV, 41%, the internet, 25%. What's interesting is that so-called traditional media, such as direct mail and catalogs, also outscore social media and the internet, respectively. It seems the power of the printed word still rings true and has great value when evaluating advertising. I think a case can be made that reading on the web requires a modern kind of discipline to actually finish the article you started to read, whereas in print, there's no place to go but finish what you picked up. Now, I'm not saying just because we read a printed product, we finish it. In many cases, we don't. The same is also, and perhaps more true, for the digital experience. So, what do we need to understand? America has changed. The world has changed. The world is now connected. The world is more sophisticated. Marketing and advertising is more complex than ever before. And in the next 10 years of advertising will rely completely on adapting to our large tech-driven utopian vision of making every single message relevant to every receiver. If you consider yourself able to predict the future with any reasonable degree of accuracy, you'll know that a solid human understanding is absolutely essential for success. And that is what we all should be good at, a solid human understanding. Over the next 10 years, advertising and marketing will move from communicating to predicting, based on real-time human needs. Without a doubt, we're going to witness a shift from obsessing over what advertising looks like to what advertising feels like. Our media lives will be more automated, slicker, and quicker. Advertisers and marketers will know how much we like their ads and programs because of our wearables will tell them. And because of this relationship with brands, every ad you see, even those in print, will be based on who you are. So what do we need to consider? As the great marketer Boromir said, one does not simply serve ads on the mobile web. Over the past 5 years, billions of dollars in advertising spend has been moved from print media to digital. If you push advertisers or their media agencies for the rationale for this switch, it does not take long to get to the immovable economic argument of CPM. That is the cost to reach 1,000 consumers. Rarely can any business sustain itself with a tenfold price premium over its competition. But let's pause for a moment and move our attention from the C, cost, to the M in CPM. Measuring media audiences has never been an exact science, but the recent advances in digital media have lowered that already wobbly bar several notches further down. Not even the most naive professional believes that audience numbers of 1,000 that have been bought for $10 actually equals 1,000 audience members. The real question is, how many of the 1,000 will actually see a digital ad long enough to process it? Of the 1,000 we purchased, how many are actually bots and not humans? Ad fraud is a huge and growing issue in the digital advertising arena, and the latest data estimates that bots amount for at least 11% of the digital display advertising audience. And that figure increases remarkably to 40% for more valuable ads. Publishers sometimes use traffic sourcing, which is any method by which publishers acquire more visitors to their sites through third parties. They do this to improve measured audience levels at their sites, but when they do use source traffic, it averages out to be 52% bots. Now let's ask, of the supposed 1,000 that we may or may not have reached despite the bot numbers, how many readers have invested in ad blocking software to ensure their browsing experience is ad digital free? The numbers of ad blocking users is reaching a watershed period of growth, and it will not stop. The obvious point is that the digital fraud goes up, the digital ad spend goes up. Let's add to this that just because you can view a digital ad does not mean you will view it. Digital ads have the annoying habit of appearing above, below, or to the side of the viewing area that is the consumer is exposed to. Thereby he doesn't see it. The question is, even if they actually do see it, will they see the ad long enough to process it? From the You Can't Make This Stuff Up files, an ad industry group called MRC, Media Research Center, which sets standards for advertising measurement, get this, has determined that an online ad can be counted as viewed if 50% of its pixels are viewed for 1 second. Put that in the bank. I could go on for hours about this topic, but in the future, let's take a more skeptical look at the M the next time we see CPM data trotted out. 1,000 digital viewers is never equal to 1,000 pairs of eyeballs, but it is actually one of the biggest questions in all of media today. The problem is that the evidence that social media marketing has been a mass delusion is piling up and reaching a point where it is becoming hard to hide from. To wit, a recent report published in the Harvard Business Review says, across 16 studies, we found no evidence that following a brand on social media changes people's purchasing power, nor does it spur purchasing by friends. In a study by Duke University, the American Marketing Association, and Deloitte, over 88% of senior marketers surveyed said they could find no measurable impact from social media marketing. Let's go further. A study from Forrester Research reported that only 0.07%, that's 7 in 10,000 of a major brand's Facebook followers ever engaged with one of its posts. Coca-Cola's global marketing chief, Marcos de Quinto, said, social marketing is a strategy for those who don't have a digital strategy. The silly idea that people want to go online on a social network and have conversations about their toothpaste or their tires only makes sense if you understand the fantasy land in which marketing people live. An alternate universe of the meatball-crazy media guys who are passionate about brands in a socially networked environment that does not exist. Yet the ad dollars continue to pour into mostly ineffective digital swamps. So does science matter with advertising dollars? Not yet. Here's a horrific chart. The yellow is ad agencies. They are making tons of dough. When 2007 hit, they hardly felt it. These are periodicals, newspapers. We have and continue to take a big hit. The answer is they make 15% on whatever they do. And digital is so easy that that's where they're going. They have no interest in changing until someone forces them to, and I see no method on the horizon for them being forced to be honest, realistic. I don't see it, but there you go. Which is why I said in the beginning that not all attention gets meaningful ROI results. And as Deming once said, without the correct data, you're just another person with an opinion. In an environment of unlimited content, there is also by default unlimited advertising. What is the revenue destiny of unlimited ads and unlimited content? Well, the answer is decreased value. Only material things that are rare and unique have value. Well, what do you know? Printed magazines are unique, finite, and material. The important question here is, how rare, unique, and indispensable are your publications? I'm very sure that 10 years from now, when we look back at this era of big data as it evolved, we'll be stunned by how uninformed we used to be when we made decisions. The longevity of any publishing business plan is subject to radical changes from unseen events and unpredictable catalysts. These consist of social and technological advances that cannot be forecast to any great extent. Many people and companies may see the trends I've been talking about, but lack the courage or the expertise to utilize them for the future of their businesses. It is often through concern about the impact of their current mode of business. Here's a key message that comes from this that applies to all businesses. And I can't express this, any stronger than I'm gonna. It is your future business that should replace your current business before someone else replaces it for you. We have just discussed the many forces driving change in media and the still evolving advertising model itself. In the next few years, will be seen as an inflection point for media, where bold action decides who succeeds and who fails within the next 3 to 5 years. We're living in a period that will transform all businesses, a period where constant innovation is required not only to stay competitive, but to survive. John Sexton of the New York Times said it best, "Ain't no room for cowards in media at this moment in time." If you are not asking yourselves every couple of years how to once more scare yourself to death, then you're living something of a coward's life. A few closing observations. Will magazines and books and newspapers exist in 5 years? Absolutely. In what form and with what functions? Nobody knows for sure. If you want to survive, change is inevitable and required to keep pace with the changing conditions. Organizations must constantly review, evaluate, and adjust their business and operations to new conditions in order to grow and be successful. They need to be prepared to learn new skills, take advantage of new trends, and adapt to unforeseen circumstances. Our competition isn't between our traditional publishing brethren. It is between the traditional us and the very non-traditional likes of BuzzFeed, Upworthy, Netflix, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Snapchat, Tumblr, and 1,000 others. These are the new distractors of our valuable asset of time spent with media. These newcomers are perhaps the next Hearst, Condes, New York Times, Time Inc. They don't do what we do, and yet they are getting the lion's share of time spent with media. And as we all know, time is money. Our job is to connect to people, to interact with them in a way that leaves them better than when we found them, more able to get where they'd like to go. The strategic positioning of yourselves and your companies as an innovator is the most positive thing that you can do in this environment. If you put yourself as part of the innovative future and you manage to work for a company that is a great innovator, you will more than just survive, you will prosper and thrive. So, a quick review. Stay alert to how media is being consumed. Remember the new formula that attention is monetizable. Consider that people no longer draw a distinction between new media brands. Remember that millennials consume more media than any other generation. Remember that science proves that the haptic experience of print is real and positive. Remember that digital CPMs are totally suspect. Be prepared. This is a great time to rethink the unthinkable. This is a unique and historic period where the unthinkable has never been more possible. We live in a period of experimentation, innovation, and entrepreneurism that the world has never seen before. And on that, I say thank you and have a good day. And are there any questions? I threw everything at you. Was easy. Okay.
I'm so proud of my born-again print believer.
You see the things I would do for my good friend? Speak to me afterwards. Yes, ma'am.
So who's doing it right? Who's actually a print-first product right now that you've seen in the market that is finding a way to continue to innovate?
Hearst is my poster child for the big guys. They continually invest in new products and have consistently for 20 years They bought into Discovery TV, ages ago, and it's now thriving for them. I believe they own some of BuzzFeed. Their titles are doing well. They are aggressively looking into the future in a good way. And David Carey has a really great expression. He doesn't mind failing. He just wants to fail fast. And I think we can all learn from that.